Morning of September 21st, 1939. In Berlin, the dry, tension-filled air invades the cold rooms of the SS headquarters on Prinz Albrechtstrasse, where the echo of polished boots resonates like an imminent judgment, and the smell of freshly printed paper mixes with that of burnt cigarettes. While cold-eyed officers in impeccable uniforms gather around tables covered with confidential maps, feeling the oppressive weight of secrets that will shape unspeakable future horrors, with the ticking of clocks marking the inexorable rhythm of genocidal plans. On the Polish front, the damp ground trembles with the distant rumble of heavy artillery, the stench of sulfur and decomposition hanging over devastated fields and newly dug graves, evoking the paralyzing terror of a nation crushed between two relentless invaders, with the wind carrying the muffled lament of razed villages and the icy touch of fine rain cutting the exposed skin of exhausted soldiers. As Poland agonizes under the dual occupation, the 21st marks a dark point in the Nazi escalation, with decisions sealing the fate of millions in cold, calculated plans. 20 days after the German invasion and 4 after the Soviet one, Axis forces consolidate territories, with Germans and Soviets meeting along the lines of the Bug and Vistula rivers, dividing the country like a carcass disputed by ravenous predators. The smell of turned earth and fresh gunpowder permeates the damp air, and exhausted refugees feel the cold sweat running down their necks as they hear the menacing hum of reconnaissance planes, creating a symphony of despair that tightens the chest like an invisible vice, forcing families to drag scarce belongings in creaking carts on roads clogged with debris and abandoned bodies, the sound of grinding wheels mixing with muffled cries. The Polish government, now exiled and fragmented, sees its leadership interned in Romania, which, under intense German pressure, declares neutrality and limits vital supplies, sealing the complete isolation of a dying Poland in its final breath. This decision echoes like a distant, merciless verdict, leaving scattered Polish soldiers with the bitter taste of betrayal in their dry, cracked mouths as they march east in a chaotic and desperate retreat, the muddy soil clinging to their worn boots like a presage of inevitable defeat, with the tremor of Soviet tanks vibrating in their bones like a living earthquake shaking the collective soul. In the heart of the German occupation, the tension between the regular army and the SS boils like a pot about to overflow, following vehement protests against the frankly illegal measures of special forces like Udo von Voyersch, which massacred defenseless civilians in brutal and cowardly actions. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt orders immediate restraint, declaring that such actions will not be tolerated in the war zone. But more sinister and ambitious plans emerge from the shadows of the Nazi regime. In Berlin, Reinhard Heydrich, the ruthless chief of the Reich Security Main Office, the RSHA, convenes the commanders of the Einsatzgruppen mobile killing units for an emergency and confidential meeting, sending secret summaries to the absent via discreet messengers under the cloak of night. The air in the conference room, thick with cigarette smoke and conspiratorial whispers, carries the oppressive weight of a final objective kept strictly secret, to be achieved only after a long period of meticulous and gradual preparation, with the sound of pens scratching on paper echoing like definitive sentences. Heydrich outlines the Schnellbrief, an urgent and detailed directive that charts the path to systematic horror. All Polish Jews are to be concentrated in a limited number of large cities, with mass deportations, especially from Western Poland, incorporated into the Reich to make it completely free of Jews and prepare the ground for pure German colonization, while entire communities feel the rough touch of ropes tying belongings to carts forced towards the unknown. On the Eastern Front, Soviet forces advance with relentless speed, capturing key cities like Wilno and approaching Lwów, where the siege tightens with thundering artillery that makes the ground vibrate violently. the air heavy with paralyzing fear as families huddled in damp basements feel the cold touch of Soviet shackles and the acrid smell of sweat mixed with the damp earth of makeshift graves. The NKVD, the Soviet secret police, begins mass arrests of intellectuals, Polish officers, and suspects of counter-revolutionary activity, dragging victims into creaking trucks under the dark mantle of night, the sound of slamming doors and shouted orders in Russian echoing like irrevocable death sentences, leaving the palpable void of empty homes. In besieged Warsaw, the German bombardment intensifies with renewed fury. The Luftwaffe unleashes incessant waves of explosive charges that cause historic buildings to collapse in clouds of suffocating gray dust, the ground trembling violently like a living being in agony, and the air thick with the shrill scream of air raid sirens and the guttural wails of the wounded scattered on streets paved with debris. Civilians, including the vast Jewish community of hundreds of thousands, run desperately to makeshift shelters in cold, damp cellars, feeling the searing heat of flames licking cracked walls and the sticky touch of dried blood on trembling hands, while the acrid smell of burnt wood, melted metal, and scorched flesh permeates everything, leaving deep emotional scars like the silent, suffocated grief of mothers over the inert bodies of children, with the echo of explosions reverberating in their ears, like an incessant hammering that shatters the mind and spirit. Global reactions resonate, distant but impactful, highlighting Poland's growing isolation. In the United States, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addresses Congress in an extraordinary session, urgently calling for the revision of the Neutrality Act to allow cash and carry arms sales to belligerent nations, criticizing American isolationism and warning of the imminent danger of Nazi aggression that threatens to engulf the free world. The echo of his voice transmits urgency on crackling radios across the country, as listeners feel a chill of apprehension imagining the conflict spreading beyond European borders. In Romania, the already declared neutrality is shattered by the assassination of Prime Minister Armand Călinescu by members of the pro-Nazi Iron Guard, a brutal attack with point-blank shots that spills warm blood on the streets of Bucharest, intensifying Polish despair and paving the way for a future pro-Axis turn, is less than Hajon, with diplomats feeling the oppressive weight of decisions that seal the fates of entire nations, leaving the air thick with betrayal like a cold, sharp blade in the backs of the Allies, while the sound of gunshots echoes in the chaotic streets. This day reflects the brutality of ideological and totalitarian war, where secret plans and distant decisions devour innocent lives. As the sun sets, the uncertainty of tomorrow hangs heavy, a grim reminder that the struggle for humanity exacts a visceral and merciless price. To not miss the next day, subscribe, like, and comment